Everybody. Good afternoon. Thank you all for joining us today. I'm Dan from Kickbox, and we have Mercer from Campaign Monitor on with us too. We're really excited to have her. The topic today is tips to improve deliverability of your holiday emails, and that's something that I know Mercer probably sees a lot of at Campaign Monitor. We see a lot of it at Kickbox too. There's a handful of kind of cardinal sins that people commit around this time of year. Maybe you have a list of users that you've accumulated throughout the entire year and you just haven't sent to them. And then what better time to send to your users at this time of year, right? It's the holidays. There's so many things coming up. Everybody else is sending to their users. So you guys need to do the same thing, right? But there's so many things about that that pose some great risks to your deliverability, to your reputation. So we're going to talk a bit about that. Before we get into that, I want to say thanks. I've already said thanks to Mercer. Thank you very much for joining us. The whole team over at Campaign Monitor has really been a great partner for us. Kim Stiglitz, too, wanted to say thanks to her at Campaign Monitor as well. She has been a contributor to our blog. If you go to blog.kickbox.io, there is a do's and don'ts. It's a no BS advice from the email experts. So it's got Campaign Monitor, several other really great companies from just kind of the leaders of the email industry, and they have really great advice for everyone on the do's and don'ts. The most recent one is for holiday email, so it's kind of what we're talking about here. Want to thank everybody on my team that helped make this a reality too. Jessica, our marketing director, and then Holly and Gregory and Matt for helping put this all together. I'll introduce myself real quick and I'll hand it over to Mercer. I'm Dan Stevens. I'm the founder at Kickbox. My background in the past 10 years prior to Kickbox has been in the anti-spam industry, basically making sure that the emails that you don't want in your inbox don't get into your inbox. And then Kickbox is kind of coming at things from a different angle. We make sure that the emails that you do want make it to the inbox. It's a surprising challenge for a lot of companies that have their opt-in email lists and the messages are just getting diverted to spam or many other things. So Kickbox helps with deliverability. We help make sure that your email lists are good and compliant and all that sort of fun stuff. And at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Mercer. And Mercer, tell us a bit about yourself and Campaign Monitor.
Sure. So I'm Mercer Smith-Looper. I'm the integrations manager over here at Campaign Monitor. We are an email marketing company specifically for building beautiful emails. As Dan noted, we have a partnership with Kickbox, which is really helpful in terms of determining what emails are going to be good to send to, but there's also a number of other things to consider before you even get there, which I think we're going to be talking about here. So why don't we just jump right on into that? I think that the first thing to talk about is what counts as a risky email address. This is something that I think can kind of go a number of ways. So I just wanted to make sure that we provided some guidance specifically on our end, what we consider as a risky email address. So the first thing is it obviously needs to be permission-based, current and non-purchase. So that means, no buying of lists or uploading them. You need to have gotten permission from the specific subscriber in order to add them to your list. Something that we see a lot of is when people will create like a promotion. So they'll say, oh, add your email address and we will give you one entry into this promotional event. Free samples, things like that. We require an opt-in for all of those just because it's often that when people do say like, okay, yes, my email, they're not acknowledging that they're signing up for email marketing. They don't realize that they're going to be getting any kind of newsletters or anything like that. Another important step to take is to avoid spam bots and fake addresses. This is something that Kickbox specifically can be really helpful for. But a good measure that you can go through when you're first building your list is to include a CAPTCHA or maybe have the form be confirmed opt-in. That's something that we offer with Campaign Monitor. So if someone fills out your subscribe form, you can send them a secondary email to say like, hey, just confirm that this is something that you want to be receiving. This can really up your deliverability and engagement just because the people that are on your list have double confirmed that they still want to be getting it. The last thing that I know I wanted to address was that permission can go stale, meaning that if someone hasn't received an email from you within around 6 months, they can basically forget that they signed up for the list, and that can really heighten the opportunities for people to mark your email as spam or stop opening it. So even if you did get them to opt in and you did everything right, if you haven't sent to them within 6 months or so, the risk of those addresses being bad is much heightened. Dan, do you have any thoughts on that at all?
Yeah, and we see that a lot with, there's actually a kind of a big difference between B2B and B2C with how quickly email addresses can go stale. And it does really depend on kind of the precedence as to how that email was gathered as well. If it was just a quick promotion that somebody signed up for, or if it's a newsletter that somebody's really excited to receive or something, it really varies from case to case. But yeah, one thing I would add too is, why is Mercer saying you shouldn't send to old email addresses, and why does the industry generally say that's a no-no? And it's not because any of us or Mercer or Campaign Monitor, anybody like that wants to be a goody two-shoes and obey the rules or anything like that. It's really for your own benefit. So let's talk a little bit. Just want to talk a little bit about what would happen hypothetically if you did send to some really old contacts who don't have any recollection of who you are, or if you send to a purchase list or something. At best, it's going to have no value to you. I mean, people aren't going to be engaged, and that's kind of the best you could hope for. Worst case scenario, and what's probably more likely to happen, is these people are going to mark you as spam. And then when you go to send the next campaign to your opt-in list, to the people who really do want to hear from you, it's going to go to their spam folder. And this is the internet we're talking about. There, you can't just call up Dave and have him fix your email reputation. It's an ephemeral process. You've damaged your reputation, and fixing it can be a long, arduous process. It can even be irreversible. So that's why you hear a lot of people kind of saying, oh, don't send to old contacts, or don't purchase lists. It's not for any of our benefit. It is really for your benefit to kind of listen to these best practices, and these guys really know what they're doing, and so it's really what's best for you.
Yeah, I think that's a really great point. I mean, obviously your reputation, just as it does in regular life, follows you just in the email world. So making sure that you have a clean reputation can be really important, especially if you are ever planning on moving your ESP or anything along those lines as well. Yeah, so did you have any thoughts about the difference between B2B lists and B2C lists, Dan? I'm interested to hear a little bit more about what you've seen with those.
Yeah, so B2B, with specific regards to deliverability, tend to go stale a lot faster. People change jobs, companies go out of business. So if it's been more than 6 months, you're not going to just have people who don't remember you. You're going to have a lot of people who just aren't working at that company anymore. The company doesn't exist. So I mean, that's where products like Kickbox can help. That's where having an email sending regimen too, where you're just making sure you're always engaging with those users, can really help. So with specific regards to B2B, if you're B2B, I would make sure you're on top of that. If you're B2C, you can kind of have a little bit more room to put your feet up, just from what we've seen. I mean, that's kind of our perspective. It might not be the official rule of the land, but B2C, people tend to keep their Gmail or Yahoo or AOL accounts for decades, and kind of expect to receive the coupon codes and the newsletters and things like that, the special offers in their personal email address. So it's a little bit more lax, whereas in business, they like to see more professional things. They like to see it more often. And again, people are changing jobs all the time. So keep that in mind as well.
Definitely. And just, the last recommendation there would just be to make sure that you're aware of what's happening in your lists. So running them through Kickbox can be a really great way just to see who's come in, what's happening with the emails that you do have on there. And that can be a really great way to make sure that any of those risky email addresses have been acknowledged and either removed or addressed in your lists. Did you have anything else to add on that, Dan, about risky email addresses or any kind of like best practices around those?
I think I'm good. I think we can move on to the next bullet point.
Perfect. Yeah, so next point that we wanted to address was some of the tips and tricks to make sure that you're engaging the right people in your list. And this is probably one of my favorite things about email marketing, because it deals with segmentation. For those of you that aren't familiar, segmentation is making sure that you are targeting people based on information that they've provided to you. So what, could be that they're female or male. It could be that they read certain or clicked on certain links in your past emails, or that they've asked for specific information. So this can be done in Campaign Monitor using custom fields. You can have up to 50 of them for every list. A great way to make sure that you are engaging with the right people in your list is to segment based on things that they've already indicated interest in. Especially with the holidays coming up, a lot of people will say that they're interested in receiving information, say, for example, about like discounted rates for movie tickets or something like that. Those people are going to be much more inclined to read your emails about discounted movie tickets than just your general subscriber list. So segmenting properly and sending to them can be a great way to up the deliverability, up the engagement. Something else that is a little bit more in depth would be, targeting people who are actually opening and are engaged. We offer engagement segments in Campaign Monitor, which means that you can see, like, if someone hasn't opened your past 2 emails or something like that, maybe you shouldn't be sending with them. You could consider sending a re-engagement campaign. That's usually for people who have gone, I don't know, maybe like 2 months or so without engaging in your emails. We have some great examples that we can share in the chat after this. In your re-engagement email, you can just remove them altogether. That might seem a little bit crazy because, you could say like, oh, maybe this person just wasn't checking their email or something along those lines, but it's ultimately to have an engaged and healthy subscriber than one who may or may not actually care about the emails that they're receiving. I think that this also kind of goes along with some guidelines about that you could maybe provide, Dan, about when you should be retiring email addresses from your list. Do you have any thoughts other than the ones that I've just talked about?
Yeah. So one of the really cool things I like to mention to people, I feel like segmentation to a lot of people, it's kind of almost seems like a daunting task, and it's really not. Mercer, as you were saying, Campaign Monitor has a lot of capabilities built right in. That almost make it automatic for you to do segmentation. A lot of people think you have to have a team of data scientists to do proper segmentation, and it's really not at all the case. If you have a simple newsletter or something like that, Campaign Monitor has you completely covered. If you have something a little more complicated, maybe you have an e-commerce site, maybe it's seasonal, maybe you have a service where people sign up and it can be any kind of number of different scenarios. But even if you have that, if you just have one developer, he can write a simple SQL query for you that will find the most recent signups, the people who have logged in recently and who haven't logged into your service or haven't purchased any of your e-commerce goods in a long time, and you can segment based on that. There's not really a lot of complexity around that. So. I think that would be my point. I think you asked one more question though, Marissa, which I'm forgetting. What was it?
Oh yeah, I just asked about do you have any best practices in regards to when you should retire an address from your list?
Yeah, great. So what we typically see is we like to tell people to kind of create a segment of kind of like a BFF group. These are people who are really engaged. Maybe they've been with you for a long time, or maybe they're new but very, very, very active. These are people who the response rate is going to be amazing for, and you definitely want to segment them into one group. And then you can kind of start maybe as people who haven't engaged in a month or so, and they're maybe more marginal in their overall quality, and you might want to segment based on a metric like that, and send to that and kind of watch. And then see, there's lots of articles online that talk about industry standards and things like that. You can look up and see for your particular industry what the engagement is like. And when the engagement starts to kind of drop below the standard as you continue to segment, it's best at that point to really call it quits. So you're into kind of this valley of low engagement, and then stop right there basically. And before you hit kind of this, basically, if you go much further beyond that, you're going to hit sort of a cliff, and that's where the spam reports start flooding in. That's where the deliverability starts going into the spam folder and things like that. So at that point, you'd really want to kind of tone it back. So it really depends, though, but that's kind of my recommendation, is to just kind of work your way back from a given metric until that return on investment starts to diminish, and then stop. And then those people that didn't make the cut, you kind of got to say goodbye to them. Maybe there's something in the future. Maybe they get re-engaged. Maybe there is some kind of a re-engagement campaign you can rope them in on, but it starts to get risky and you start to play with fire a bit there. So that's the way I'd approach it.
Yeah, that's a great metaphor, that like valley of danger valley. Right. I hadn't before, but that's a really great way of looking at it. And I think, one of the best ways that you can gauge where you're going into that danger valley is by how often you send, right? If you're sending somewhat frequently, it helps you to measure what the actual engagement is. For just sending every few months, it's a pretty long path between data points, I'd say. I did actually just want to touch on one thing you mentioned with segmentation and e-commerce. We do have a lot of integrations with CRMs that you can pull information in from that can be helpful. So if you're using something like Salesforce and stuff like that, you can pull in all of that data as custom fields as well. So you wouldn't even need to write a SQL query, which is pretty sweet.
Awesome, great.
Yeah, so I guess that kind of dovetails in with some of our best practices for list health. Obviously we recommend using Kickbox. It's great, and it's super helpful. I think the one thing that I do often recommend in tandem with Kickbox is just start by building an engaged list right from the very beginning. We talked about this at the start of this hangout, but asking permission, making sure that people know what they're getting into and that they're interested to hear from you is going to be one of the best ways to ensure that you continue to have a great engagement and that the people are talking with you, are engaging, are reading, are clicking on links. The best way is to have them opt in verbally, or not verbally, but with a checkbox, and ensure that they actually care about what they're receiving. I did want to clarify that as awesome as list verification is and how helpful and amazing a tool it is, it doesn't actually count as to be sending to them. So even if you do have a list that you think is great that you might have purchased, just verifying the list doesn't necessarily confirm those subscribers for wanting to hear from you. But that being said, I would love to hear about some of the ways that you think that Kickbox can help, Dan, with those lists that might not have started off on the best foot.
Sure, yeah. I mean, where Kickbox can come in is in two parts. There's the data collection phase when you're bringing in those new users, you're onboarding them for your newsletter or for your service or your e-commerce site or whatever. We can help out with making sure that those addresses are quality when they come on. And then on an ongoing basis, obviously, like we were talking about earlier, lists email addresses go stale, and there's increase in bounces, and that can damage your reputation as well. So we recommend setting up kind of a regimen where you verify routinely, depending on your market and various other things. It's just kind of a case-by-case basis. But to echo what you're saying, yeah, verification does not make a bad list good. A bad list is always a bad list. If you've, and by bad I mean non-opt-in, if you've purchased a list, there's nothing any really company can do for you to make it valuable to you. Really the only way to make a list valuable is to get it yourself and have it from people that say, hey, here's my email address and I want you, not some other third party or anybody else, I want you as a company to contact me. That's really the only way to go about it. And I know that Campaign Monitor and Kickbox, we kind of have very simpatico views on that. Our policies are the same. I don't think either of us allow, or I know neither of us allow purchase lists or anything like that. And again, it's not because we're trying to be the good guys on the block. It's just it's just not worth it for you guys. So Kickbox absolutely has great value that it can offer, again, at the data capture side, and then as an ongoing basis. But we can't pull a miracle out of a hat and take a list of people who don't know you, aren't interested in hearing from you, and somehow make them magically want to be your best friend. It's not going to happen that way. So, but still, check that out. Check out the campaign monitor integration we have. But that's my 2 cents on that.
Yeah, I see a lot of people, or a lot of our customers that are using Kickbox, use it both to verify, if they're just coming to Campaign Monitor, they use it to verify the list prior to sending to it, which is one of our 7 tips that we have for ensuring email deliverability during the holidays. But another thing that we see is people using it for routine maintenance. So every month or so, they'll run their lists through just to make sure that everything is still kosher. Do you guys see a lot of that? Is that something that you think a lot of people are using you guys for?
Yeah, absolutely. People use us on both of the ingestion side and then routinely. Of course, we'd recommend it because it's it's recurring revenue stream for us, so we like that obviously. But people do come back kind of on their own accord. They like to see that they have 98, 99% deliverability, and open rates that are 4 times the industry standard and things like that. So that's where we come in. That's where we help out, and so it's pretty organic in that sense. People know to come back and to keep their lists at the highest quality possible.
Yeah, that's definitely, I think, one of the best things that you can do is just continue to, I think testing has been a major theme here, both on the customer side and on the Kickbox side of things. Just running things through and testing them can really make sure that everything is copacetic and good, and the people that you want to be getting your email are getting it. I did want to touch on the fact that Kickbox really helps in terms of monitoring. So people can see what's happening with their lists as they grow them. If they continue to run them through Kickbox every month or few months, they can see if their lists coming from certain areas or from certain sites are perhaps getting a higher rate of those trouble emails. That's something that we've seen a lot of people doing on our end, which is really great. So you can test, say if you have a lead form on Facebook and you're collecting leads from Twitter and you're collecting leads from a form on your site and you have them going to separate lists, you can test and see what the value of those emails really is. So whether you're getting a lot of spam emails from your Facebook and Twitter, and you can start to kind of analyze that and maybe curtail your strategy there to reflect those changes that you want to see in your list. That's, I think, one of the more innovative ways that I've seen people using us together, which is pretty cool.
Awesome, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I did want to make sure that we touched base on how we could actually get this set up. So on the Kickbox side of things, it's really easy. You don't actually need to do anything on the Campaign Monitor side because Kickbox has made it super helpful and awesome. So essentially all you have to do is you go into Kickbox and click to upload your list. I believe there's a little icon in the top left corner, and it provides you with the option to upload directly from Campaign Monitor. So you don't need to export any lists. You don't need anything except for your API key, which you can get right in your Campaign Monitor account. So then once you put in your API key and you set the list that you want to import, it's basically set it and forget it. It imports it, it scans it, and then allows you to export it directly back to Campaign Monitor as well. So again, none of that exporting of CSVs and re-importing. Everything is done very cleanly and easily for you. I think the only thing that you do need to interact with once you've set the whole process going is which emails specifically you feel comfortable having in your lists. And I think that that is one of the best things that I can say is that it's super easy. You don't actually have to do very much of anything. So there's very little high cost for using Kickbox, which I think is great.
Awesome, thanks. Yeah, appreciate that, and that's exactly right. There's, you described the process perfectly. You just pull in the Campaign Monitor list, Kickbox verifies it, and then you can set your filters for importing the data back in. Obviously, you don't want undeliverable email addresses in your list,
right,
since they're just going to bounce. And then there's some gray areas, some what we call risky emails, kind of like what we talked about at the beginning of this webinar, that you can kind of tweak and find what your tolerances are. And again, it's case by case, but you can get some of those marginal email addresses out of your list. And then at that point, it gets re-imported into Campaign Monitor, and you fire it out, and you're all set. You should have 95+% deliverability at least. We see most people getting in the really high 90s, 98, 99% deliverability, and assuming your list is opt-in and you've done some best practices like what we've talked about here, you should have really good engagement, very few spam reports and everything like that. So that's kind of what we've set out to do, and we're really excited to be integrated with Campaign Monitor. It allows us to do that with the great customer base that you guys have built over there.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that really does sum up everything. Is the two of our companies and the two of us, I think, have very similar goals when it comes to customer success and making sure that those emails go out. So, I mean, it's really a win-win, no matter what you do. So, yeah, I think for me that's everything I wanted to touch on. Are you?
Yeah, I think we hit everything on the head. So I think we can say our goodbyes. Appreciate everyone who's tuned in and listened to this. I think this is going up on YouTube.
Yes.
As well, so you guys can share that link when it goes up onto the interwebs. And then on behalf of myself and the Kickbox team, thank you guys for viewing, and thank you again, Mercer, for joining us, and I hope to do some more of these sometime soon.
Definitely, yeah, and from Campaign Monitor as well, thank you to you guys, and thanks to the viewers as well. It's been really great sharing insights with you.
All right, thanks so much, and we will talk soon. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.